that we're very transparent, so we are a work in process as well. But whenever you have a sense of urgency for other families, it stirs something within you to want to share.
Okay. And my name is Terry, and we will be sharing about marriage. And as we said on the last tape, that we're leading into our anniversary, 35 years of marriage. And you will actually receive 10 videos. This is number 2, so now we have about 8 more to do after this one. We want to share with the couples that we know that are married. Many of them are friends on Facebook. Just share about marriage. Mainly because actually after our video last week, someone came to me and asked, well, how do you meet people and how do you get involved and will you start something with this? Well, that's a kind of a subject that's possible, but I thought we had some things we want to discuss and we'll just kind of talk about it.
So with that being said, our first term that we want to talk about in marriage or even premarital relationships is this word communication. Communication, good conversation. We must learn how to converse with people to really express who we are and get to know them. And at the core of every marriage is the ability to successfully communicate with each other. This has to be learned over a period of time because individuals have different backgrounds. We have different cultures, which will all affect our communication. We're just different people. We're two individuals becoming one. So for that reason, communication, it will take a lifetime for you to effectively communicate with your spouse. And it has been said that 60 to 90% of all communication not only consists of words, but it consists of body language, eye contact, facial expressions, and tones by which we share the smallest sentences in are very, very important. So these are things that we think about when we think about communication.
Okay. And so, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about how we first communicated, how we first met.
Okay.
It's very funny that that question came to us this week because I told him, yeah, guess what? We're going to talk about that on our next video. And so, when you think about how we first met, there are some things obviously that come to my mind. What do you think about?
I think about actually when I first saw you, you really did not see me. We were in Memphis, and I noticed you first. So I would like to say, first of all, I was the one pursuing her because I saw her first without her seeing me. So I had a purpose in mind before I even asked her for the first date. The first purpose was I wanted to meet her and get to know her through good conversation.
What attracted you to me? I mean,
Well, because
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Okay, I noticed that you were already conversing with people, and you seemed to be a very friendly, outgoing person. You was, and you still are. You're easy to talk to. You're not easy, but easy to talk to.
Okay.
Those are two different things. She wasn't easy when we dated, but she was easy to talk to, which made it more comfortable for me to coming from a background where I was kind of rough on the edges and I was not very emotional or anything like that. I was just kind of rough on the edges. So she kind of taught me how to converse and put my feelings out there in honesty and integrity. So I saw her in friendly conversation with others. So that made it more comfortable for me to approach her in a way by which we can converse only. She was not this ultra complicated type of individual. She was not simple, but she was just easy to talk to.
So ladies, so it's important, be friendly, talk to others, converse, don't always look for others to come to you. Now, let me talk to you about how I met you.
Okay.
because knowing how you don't conversate all the time, you wouldn't ask that question. But it's amazing that I was in school in Lexington in Saints Academy. And you actually came to the campus, and I know I may not even have shared this with you. You came to the campus and with your uncle, Miller, and you came into the service and you sat there as a observant, but I noticed the dignity. And for me, a man with dignity means a lot. I've noticed the dignity in which you sat. You didn't sit slouching. That things like that were important to me. Although I was very young, I knew that means a man, and that was important to me. So that, and then the way you looked. I wasn't shocked about that. I kind of liked that as well. But, of course, me being me, I was not going to approach you. But I just thought, oh, wow, he's nice, whoever he is. And that's where that went.
And I was like that because I did come from a family that was very, very male, strength oriented, if you allow me to say. I had very great mentors, men in my family. I could not say that I grew up fatherless. My father was very much a part of my life. And I had great uncles as well that taught me work ethics, how to develop myself as a man, as a young man. And then when I turned my life over to Christ, I had my pastor there, and other men that taught me how to go in and out among Christians and how to conduct myself in a mannerable way. My life, I changed my life first before I even dated her. I had to get me together first, and I had to make sure that I was whole before I could actually pursue someone else.
And that goes back to the question, so how do you meet someone? I always told people, the youth at the church, or the people that I talked to, the young people, the ladies that I mentored in the high school, that conversation means, it's almost like playing baseball. If I have a ball and I throw it to you, then if you pick it up and throw it back to me, we're beginning to communicate. But if I throw that ball to you, which it might be just high, and you let the ball drop and never pick it up, that's the end of our communication. So it is important, whether it's eye contact, that's the beginning of communication. If it's body language, that's another start of communication. So all of these things are very important in dating. So be careful of who you make the communication with. But then secondly, if it's someone that you would like to keep their attention, don't be so hard. Don't be so hard to communicate with.
Let me just say this. I know that our time of dating was different than this time. When we were dating, of course, there was not Twitter. There was not Facebook. There was no texting. It was phone calling, but there was no texting. So it caused us to have to develop our communication skills. So it's more than it was more than just a simple tweet or just a simple hit on simple text. These things, they're good for their time. And I use all the social media and all that. But I still believe that if you want to get into a marital relationship, something serious, you must learn how to express yourself through conversation. Learn how to talk in whole sentences, and then learn how to receive in whole sentences, not tweets, but learn how to express yourself to that young lady that you are pursuing. And that's the only way she's going to get to know you. You don't get to know anybody through a tweet.
Well, and I know this not quite it's on our subject, and we'll probably go into this a little bit further, but it even concerned me a lot that, of course, the group now, the millennials, they don't date the way we did. They don't, as you said earlier. And not only that, neither do they marry in the same manner. So I know that's something we're going to deal with a little later, but that I just wanted to kind of put a pin there.
It's The Bible says in Proverbs 18:21, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat of its fruits. And we oftentimes read scriptures like that, and we apply them to other circumstances, other situations, other things in life. But that also applies to your
Right.
to your marriage. I want to really, when you talk about the power of life and death as it relates to marriage, I always said the first 5 years of marriage is very pivotal, very key, because that's the adjustment years. You have been an individual all of your life that you have existed here, and now you meet this person. You say a few marriage vows at the wedding. You have on all the nice wedding garments. You go on an extravagant honeymoon. But now you got to come back and become one.
And you know, I say also it's the unfolding years. I now, that perfect little towel that I was all folded, I'm becoming unfolded to you now.
Right.
You're getting to know what's in each of those layers.
Yeah.
And that's the time when you say, okay, it's not just the way she looks, or it's not just the way he looks. I've got to live with him the way he is. I've got to live with her the way she is. And all those things that don't necessarily fit what you think they should fit, this is where you become one. That's the beginning of becoming one.
All of the big impression during dating is over with.
Yeah.
The whining and dining, it continues through the marriage.
Please, okay.
But
thank you.
it's a little bit different because there is commitment there and there is budgeting there.
Right.
And we'll talk about that later.
Right.
But as she says, as my wife said, that's absolutely true. It is an unfolding. You start to learn who this person really is, and then you work through those things, because we must understand that because you argue in marriage and you do those things. That's why I wanted to be as honest as possible.
Right.
I do not want to just take photo ops, and I'm not going to sit here and try to seem like I'm perfect. Yes, we've had arguments. We've had them recently. We've had them today. But even in arguments, the key element is there's still communication. Even though there's disagreement, there's still communication. The danger is silence. The danger is silence. Those are the serious ground. There's absolute silence. There is no communication. That is a setup for failure.
And you know, one thing I always tell couples as I talk to them from time to time, you know, there are times when you get in those moments that you disagree. I'll just say disagree. That you might get to the point where you better go pull out that wedding picture. Remember, you said yes to them. Because, all the flowers and all the white and all the candles, it's all over. But you remember, you said I do. So I told people before, you got to go pull out that wedding picture. Remember, this is the same person that walked down the aisle, or that you walked down to, that you was all in tears about. This is the same person. So now let's work together and get this thing going.
So I'm saying that by our words, we can develop a beautiful and a prosperous marriage that glorifies God. And by our words, we can destroy the very gift and mission God has given to us in marriage. Be careful, not only in marriage, but in all walks and phases of life. Be very careful how you frame your words, what you let come out of your mouth, what you speak into the atmosphere. Don't speak negativity over your household. Don't, even though you may have a certain feeling about it, don't speak those words into the atmosphere, because you give life to those words. If you talk death to a situation, death will happen. If you talk life to a situation, life will happen. So you got to be careful what you say, and especially who you say it to.
Right.
We got now. I want to bring in another phase here concerning this conversation. We must guard who we conversate with once we're in the boundaries of marriage.
Okay. And what do you mean by that?
You don't want to, if you're going through a situation, if you're going through some tough times, which we all have. See, we must understand that married people know married people, like game, no game, and all that. There are times in a marriage where you are going through some kind of difficult times. So you got to watch who you share your heart with, who you share things that in your house. That's why marriage is a thing that you should be counseled on before you go into
Right,
it.
right.
There's two times I believe you ought to be counseled in marriage. That is when you go into it, you should be taught counseled by either professional counsel or ministerial counsel before you go into marriage. And then if your marriage is ending and it doesn't work, you should be counseled before you decide to leave. Because a lot of times that's why I'm here. That's what's on my heart now. I've seen so many couples throw their home away over nothing. Something that probably could have been worked out if there had been a mediator to kind of mediate thing and to temper certain situation. So those are two times. When you're going into it, please get counseling from a professional or ministerial counsel. So communication, conversation, you develop great friendship. A lot of marriages that last for a long period of time is because they were great friends. And that friendship continued on through the marriage. They conversated about everything, talk about everything, share about everything.
But let me say this real quick. That means that when you're dating, you be sure you have things in common. Because if you marry someone and you can only see what they look like and don't understand what their heart is like or what their goals in life are, then you don't know if you have anything in common with that person or not. And I say that because a lot of times in our early life, we shared what we wanted to do in ministry, what we had done in ministry. We shared what our families were like. So there were not a whole lot of surprises.
Right.
Even though there was some unfolding, there wasn't
Right.
a whole lot of surprises as we got into the marriage. Now, granted, we still grew together, meaning that there still became some times that there were difficult times. But at the end of the road, that's one thing I can always say. I knew where your heart was, and you know where my heart is. So at the end of the road, and that's what's important. Be sure that the early communications don't cause a problem that give you surprises in the later communication. In other words, there's an order to your dating. When you're dating is just getting to know each other. Here, there's an order to life. So you want to be careful that nothing taints that. In other words, that you get so wrapped up in the person in other manners that you don't get to know their heart.
Okay, and that's good. And we're talking about dating. Well, let's move a little bit further into after I've said I do, and there is commitment there. So we want to, and a lot of those principles you can take them over into marriage, but those of us that are married now know that once you have married, it's kind of a different playing ground that you're playing on now. So those things have to be more detailed. There are some things in dating that you don't discuss. You really don't have to discuss because you're dating. That's it.
True.
But in marriage, there are more detailed things that you have to discuss. You don't want you don't want to live a life of secrecy. You want to be open out front and live out loud. So those are some things within that. And me and my wife, we were just elaborating on that dating period up until the first 5 years, and then we talked about. We want to share with you about your time spent conversating with God. Let me just say this: a man, to the ladies, a man that loves God will love you. If he loves God first, he loves you. He will love you because through our relationship with God, he's going to teach you what to do, how to say, how to treat your spouse, how to lead your household, how to lead your family with compassion. And that leads to our first scripture there in 1 Peter. He says there, husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives. Treat them with respect as the weaker vessel, weaker partner. And that simply means the more delicate partner. It does not mean that she is any less in intellect or any of that. It's just that she is more delicate. So the delicate partner, as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. If the conversation is hurting with you and your wife, then the conversation is hurting with you and God. So those things, I don't care, I don't want to say something without starting to preach, but we're living in a day and time when people say, well, you know, I prayed and this was that and that was that and I just went on and did what I did. When you had disagreement with your spouse, that in itself can hinder your prayers. It has a crippling effect. It doesn't stop them, but it has a crippling effect. So those issues are nothing that you can preach over, dance over, play music over, and sing solos over. You have to deal with those. You have to deal with your household.
And you know, sometimes, you know, even in that, I know sometimes you have to go to God, even when there's an understanding that you seem like you can't get to the bottom of how do we resolve this? Because he's not moving, budging on it. I'm not budging on it. And, you know, sometimes we say, I'm right. And he's wrong. When in fact, we need to consult God.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with this? You know, there are many times I ask God, what do I do with this? How do I handle this? How do I deal with this? And so communication to God, if communication to God is broken, there's no telling what happened, what could happen, because you don't have a source to go to. And so if you don't have a source to go to, then you're depending on yourself. And we ourselves can come up with some solutions.
That really that really you put something on me right there. That's why it's so important when you go into marriage, put God in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't go there without God. I counsel people before I marry people. Take God into your relationship, because that is the real source that both of you have to go to.
And be sure you're both on the same page about that.
Yeah.
Because unless you're both on the same page, you can't take the marriage to God. The both of you have to take it.
Yeah.
He has to take it, and then your delicate self has to take it. You have to take it to God. So you want to be sure that you're both on the same page, because you know you don't want any cracks in the surface.
And a lot of times, that is so true. You have to be both on the same page. But then there are also times when I do realize that maybe one partner is more spiritually mature than the other.
Sure.
But we have to understand that we are going
In the
to
same,
the same
direction.
destination.
That's it. As long as you both love God.
Yeah.
Even if you get in there behind, you got to both love God.
If you both love God and one has to learn a little more about God, that's a good thing.
Because, honey, if you're both going to California, you're going to get to California. But if one of you going to California and another one going to Florida, you'll never get to the same place.
So really, we really just said, in a nutshell, know your mate.
Know your mate. It's so important. No, don't know what he look like. Don't just know how he feels, how he walks, how he smells. You know, all those things are good too.
But they all wear off.
Yeah. Yes.
As time go by.
As it's unfolding.
When I look at old pictures of myself,
Right.
I know that I'm not the same person as I once was. So, and time is going to happen to all of us. Age is going to happen to all of us. So those things will pass away. So you want to work on the infrastructure of your marriage. So whenever the weight and the heat of things come down on your marriage, you've built it on a good infrastructure. You got communication there.
And you know, you said that, and it's a fact, because as we were going through old pictures, and you saw those at the beginning, or you'll see those at the beginning of the video, we were going through old pictures. I looked at some of the pictures. It looked like we were sizes that somebody could blow us over. You know, now it would take a storm, but nonetheless, we're the same people.
Exactly.
I'm still the same person, but you know, it's just a matter of, did you know them?
Right.
And that's what you don't want to be a surprise, who the person really is.
And you want to make sure that you do that, if possible, before children come. Because when children come, there's going to be a little separation, and not necessarily separation out the house, but everything is going to be thrown towards the children.
Because
all the attention, all the development,
Right.
everything's going to be being poured into the children. And sometimes, sure enough, there you got a balance there. You can't let your marital relationship suffer,
Right.
but they got to be that word temperance there. You got to temper that. You can't get so involved in me and you and forget about the children. No, we have children now.
And the household is never the same. Once a child comes into the house, the household will never be the same.
No.
But there's still a new growth to learn.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
still a new love. There's still a new household. And when they leave, as they have for us.
It's a whole new
The
brand.
whole new, so those are different seasons, and we've talked about that as well. But it's just a matter of fact of, when you know them from the beginning, then all these seasons, that makes it easier.
Right.
You're not gonna make it through the season if you don't know them.
Right.
You're not gonna make it through the
Yes,
season because it gets tough.
Yeah. If there's any big surprises, that's the danger zone. That no surprise. So we got to. I also want to cover this. Also, we got to honor and accept our gender differences. And when you talk about communication with your spouse or your wife, you got to understand that she is a female, and she understands that you are a male. There's certain things that men we don't do. We just and then there's certain things that
Talk about those certain things real quickly.
Let me see. Men, we have a tendency sometimes to think slower than our wives. We think things through. They think things a little bit faster.
And women, you want a danger to come in. If just because you think faster, you disrespect, that's dangerous. And so, yes, we do think faster, but I found out that even though I think a lot faster, I know when he gets it together, it's so solid. It's so solid I can walk on it. So that's